Hello tonight. On the wrap, it's official. More than half of England is in drought. Some parts of the country are experiencing their fourth heat wave of the year. July is expected to be the driest month on record, and more than 200 wildfires have been reported in the past fortnight alone. Free speech, incitement, or a storm in a T-shirt? Police say no further action will be taken against Green leader Zach Polanski for reposting an image of a man with a picture of a guillotine and the words, "We're only making plans for Nigel." Andy Burnham seeks a cross-party consensus to fix the crisis in social care, but declines to rule out tax rises to pay for it, which the Tories say they won't back. And FIFA boss Gianni Infantino defends his plans to put the World Cup up for sale. He says they care about everyone and it's simply a choice for our members. European nations meet tomorrow to discuss a boycott. We'll discuss the day's biggest stories with the former Conservative Special Advisor Salma Shah and also the journalist and author Ian Dunt. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers. That's in half an hour. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Salma and Ian as well. Now, for most of us, the summer heat and the drought won't cause too many problems. It's an excuse to go to the beach or reach for an ice cream. But for Britain's gardeners and farmers, it spells disaster. Fields dry out, crops fail, and there's the ever-present risk of fire. Salma and Ian, the south of England has just seen 1% of its usual rainfall this month. It's just scorching, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's concerning, not least because you've got big regulatory changes happening with the regulator at the moment and issues with the water companies. And as you've rightly pointed out, biodiversity loss is not just going to be for this summer, it's going to have a long-term impact. So lots of big things to think about.
Ian?
I mean, welcome to the future, right? This is climate change. This is what it feels like. This is what it looks like. And I think there's a sort of growing... You can read a lot of scientific papers, but when people sit and feel the sun on their face now and see the way that the countryside looks around them, that's the most visceral impact of what this entails.
Well, our science editor, Tom Clark, has this report.
England's fields are parched, some even scorched by wildfires. Rivers and reservoirs are running low and the heat waves continue. All the ingredients for drought. And now it's official. The Environment Agency has declared half of England is in drought, with 7 regions across central, eastern and southern England affected. Almost a third of the country, including Yorkshire, parts of the southeast and northwest, is now in prolonged dry weather status, putting increasing pressure on farmers and water resources. Meanwhile, only the northeast is seeing normal conditions for this time of year. Why? Well, England's only had 7% of its average July rainfall. The south of England, just 1%. On top of that, there's the severe heat. 12 consecutive days, 30 degrees or above, driving off what little moisture there is in the soil. Drought criteria informed by river gauges, rainfall data and monitoring sites like this one, part of a UK-wide network measuring soil moisture based, get this, on how it scatters cosmic rays from space.
The Cosmic Ray Neutron Sensor provides a field-scale measure of soil moisture. So we're counting neutrons over an area probably about 200 metres radially from this point. So if we're looking around us now, that's covering this field and a few of the adjacent fields as well.
What are we looking at here?
What we're seeing here are probably very similar values in terms of the soil moisture for the site, but we're seeing it reach those values very quickly and probably a bit earlier on in the season than we did previously.
So what does a declaration of drought actually mean? Well, for most of us, not very much. 7 out of the 9 big water companies in England have already imposed hosepipe bans on us. But if you're a farmer, it spells disaster.
At the minute, everything is being challenged, and so that is a direct result on our cash flow, you know, and farmers won't have the cash to reinvest in their enterprises at all. The whole aspect of the industry is depressed, is the easiest way of saying it, and it is right the way across the board, in the drought areas in particular.
The declaration signals to farmers, water companies and industry to prepare for lean times. possibly for a long time. Rain forecast next week will be insufficient to reverse the drought. The long-range outlook is for high pressure and drier than average weather. An end to this drought may not come till autumn. Tom Clark, Sky News in Hungerford, Berkshire.
Well, let's get more of the thoughts of Salma and Ian. And Salma, you were talking about new regulations coming in and the water industry especially needing to change. And it's apparent that we just don't have enough ways of capturing water in this country, it seems.
Well, yeah, so this goes to the whole question around infrastructure. So people think about that as kind of like road and rail, but actually things like building new reservoirs so you can actually take advantage of capturing water is also something that's important. And, building a new reservoir will take about a decade. So we actually do need to start looking at what that water infrastructure is looking like. Also, the question that I'm sure is going to be at the forefront of a lot of people's minds is how water companies are handling leaks in situations like that, which could also be eroding our water supply. I mean,
it's galling, isn't it? There are people who sort of have seen leaks on their streets for months and months all winter, and now they're being told they can't water their geraniums.
Yes, and I think it's going to be anger-inducing, which is why you need to take a step up. But this is happening at the same time that Ofwat as a regulator is changing around the way that it regulates water. So there's all this change, yet all this stuff that's required. And stability of decision-making, stability of funding and stability of planning doesn't seem to be in place. But there is one other thing that I think is really important, which is we don't ever really talk about agriculture in a way that we should. And to me, in all the years that I worked in government, one of the most important departments that I never actually worked in but see the benefit of is DEFRA, because the whole stuff around climate, biodiversity, food security and supply, you just saw it in the report there about the impact that it has on farmers and the long tail that leaves behind of risk around what happens to that food supply and climate is absolutely critical. So, I know we're going to talk a lot about the Prime Minister's policies, but these are the kinds of long-term things that we actually need to get on our radar and that we need to give proper due attention to.
And Ian, you pointed out at the beginning that this is going to mean that people who perhaps don't believe in climate change or climate deniers are going to have to sort of wake up and smell the coffee. But for farmers, they already know what's going on, don't they? They've been battling it now for a number of years. It's perhaps becoming more apparent to other people that our climate is really changing around us. We're really going to have to change how we live, aren't we?
We will, and it's going to cost us money, and we're going to have to be more frugal in some areas as well. But I think the difference, I'm not sure people can be convinced if they haven't been convinced already. Like, there's a certain point at which the science has been so definitive for so long that if you're not convinced by it at this stage, you probably won't be. But there's a difference between being convinced and having the visceral impact of seeing it around you. And like the way that the climate feels different in this country now, the heat feels different in summer, it feels that way on your skin. Lots of the things here, and drought, we had droughts before, we'd have approximately one drought every 10 years. Now we've had 3 in the last 5 years. And that's like, you can't do anything about rainfall. Rainfall is just something that would happen. The temperature on the Earth, that's the part that's pertinent with climate change. And that's the part where we are seeing fundamental differences in how we go and the way that we're going to have to live our lives in future.
OK. We'll talk about it more in the next hour or so. But let's turn to our next story. Free speech, incitement or a storm in a T-shirt. Police say no further action will be taken against the Green leader, Zach Polanski, over an image of a man he reposted on social media with a picture of the guillotine and the words, "We're only making plans for Nigel." Let's get the thought of Salma and Ian. Salma, coming to you first of all, I mean, is this a freedom of speech issue? People have been jailed for saying very similar things on social media.
Yes, and I think, look, I don't want to sort of get into the specificity of the law because you can start making these comparisons with people who are inciting violence and people who are making what I would deem as a very crass and inappropriate joke. I don't think that a leader of a national party or somebody who is purporting to have a seat in Parliament should be reposting things like this. But as I understand it, it was taken down and they did apologise. And if the Met has decided that they're not going to pursue it, then I would see that as an end to the matter. However, I think everybody is entitled to an opinion on what they think about that particular post and that image. And I actually think it's horrifying, especially when you see the level of violence that is directed at politicians. And whether you like Nigel Farage or not, or whether you like Zach Polanski or not, they are duly elected in different places and they have a right to carry out their democratic duty.
Well, we've had statements from Reform and from the Greens. A Reform spokesperson has said, once again, we're living in a two-tier Britain. Zach Polanski's allowed to get away with inciting murder, whilst ordinary people up and down the country get a knock at the door for making a joke online. In response, the Green Party have said the police have examined the evidence and concluded that no crime was committed. This was obvious from the start, as was the fact that Reform were always using this as a political football for their own cynical purposes, to distract from questions about their own dodgy donations. Ian, is this tricky for Reform to argue about? Because they aren't necessarily consistent about this, are they? They have complained about those who've been jailed for tweets. So,
yes.
You know, they complain about people who've been jailed for tweets and then they say there should be action when somebody tweets. And
in more severe circumstances. The times that they were complaining was someone that was tweeting very violent, actually sort of demands during a violent riot, which is a very different context to doing it in the middle of, nothing taking place. It's fantastic. Look, it's obviously fantastically stupid from Jack Polanski. If you want to be a political leader, if you want to be a party political leader, you should check the images that you are publishing before you put them up. And if he's incapable of doing that, he can't do the job. But Farage, a year ago he was in Washington telling them that we have a crisis of authoritarianism in Britain, a crisis of free speech, promising a comprehensive free speech bill if he won the election. Now, his view is that basically if you accidentally, no one's challenging that it was accidental, share an image, you should have the police calling you and be arrested. Like, there is zero consistency to his position at all. It is self-interested bleating of the highest order.
Salma, do you think Polanski should apologise in person? That's the one thing that Nigel Farage says he hasn't done.
Do you know, I think he should, because I think if you're the leader of the Green Party right now and you want to take, you want to move this story on or you want to get past it, because I don't think anybody in politics sort of wants to get into it because they want to have these spats with other political leaders. He could draw a line underneath it and be, in this case, the bigger person and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have tweeted that. I think it was in bad taste and it was crass. And then perhaps say, OK, Mr Farage, what is your position on free speech? Where do you sit on this? Where do you draw the line on the two sides of this debate? Because you're right, Ian, there is some inconsistency around it. And I think as a party political leader, you do have to set out your stall and be clear about where you draw the line, because they'd have to in policy and legal terms. Do
you think that would put Farage in a difficult position if you batted it back to him?
Not really. Look, let's face it, it's a fantastically stupid story, like from pretty much everyone, and probably if it wasn't the summer, it wouldn't be dominating so much of our time. So I think I would rather the story just went away as soon as possible, because I don't think any of us are getting any real protein from this story. I don't think we're learning anything new about free speech. I don't think he's genuinely sorry about doing it. I don't think that Nigel Farage is genuinely insulted. I think he's using it for party political purposes. And of course, because it's useful to his argument on the money. That's what he's under investigation for. His claim on the money was, I needed it for security. So all of these instances are substantiatory arguments that he can then go ahead and use when, as he might expect, there'll be a negative finding against him in Parliament.
OK, well, we can make the story go away and move on to social care, because Prime Ministers have been promising to fix the crisis in social care since Tony Blair was in Downing Street, perhaps even longer. Today, it was Andy Burnham's turn to promise action. He wants to create a national care service akin to the NHS that was created by Labour 75 years ago. The challenge, of course, is finding the money to pay for it. Our People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin reports.
Absolutely brilliant man. Just watching him month by month slip away. It's crucifying, and it's just so unexpected at that age.
Richard Freed was diagnosed with dementia at just 55. He died in February. His wife Mary says his care home costs were £8,000 a month and wiped out their life savings.
We have been through the whole system, and I have fought tirelessly to get the best for him. And it has been a fight on every level. It's been extraordinary, being given money on the one hand and having taken away on the other, being given wrong information, being given no information, people just putting their hands up saying, don't know, sorry, off you go. It seriously needs fixing.
No, I'm now the Prime Minister.
You what?
He's the Prime Minister.
Well, a new one.
Another one.
But I keep changing every 5 minutes.
I know.
Andy Burnham is attempting to do what none of his predecessors have managed, to sort out Britain's broken care system.
You've probably got a feeling of déjà vu, don't you? This time we're going to do it, right?
An ageing population, rising demand, skint councils. This is not a new story.
I don't want them brought up in a country where the only way pensioners can get long-term care is by selling their home.
And security in old age.
We're determined to do the right thing by these people.
Older people will not have to worry.
We will fix the crisis in social care.
You should know we're taking urgent action, providing new funding to discharge people into social care.
I thought about my sister, a care worker. It's amazing work.
Around 420,000 people live in care homes across the UK. Those in the sector say reform is urgently needed.
30 years I've been working in this industry. 30 years we've been saying the same thing.
Nicola Richards owns 2 care homes in Sheffield.
Firstly, I welcome his comments. We've heard it for years, and we have. We have a, social care reform for years, and actually there's been no changes. In fact, it's got worse.
I suppose the big unpopular question is who pays and how much?
The money's got to come from somewhere. I think the important thing is wherever we get the money from, it's got to reach the services that need it.
The estimated cost of social care reform ranges from £5 to £10 billion.
Governments have come and gone, reviews have been commissioned and shelved, promises have been made and then broken. And yet families are still left to navigate a system that is often expensive, fragmented and under huge pressure. Andy Burnham says this time will be different.
I can't be left alone. I can't stand up. I can't walk.
Laura is 95 years old. Because she has assets of over £24,000, she has to pay for her own care until that money runs out. Her family say the system is unfair and needs to change.
It's the old chestnut, isn't it? She'd worked all her life, and because she's got a little bit more money than the standard of 24 or something, then she has to pay for her own care until it goes down to a minimum. So I find that wrong.
For 4 decades, governments have agreed the system is broken. What they've never agreed is who should pay for it. Nick Martin, Sky News, Sheffield.
Well, John Craig has joined us in the studio now to talk about this as well. And John, the key for Andy Burnham is going to be to try to get cross-party consensus on this, isn't it?
But if he doesn't, of course, he might turn it into an election issue next time round. He talked about the need to try and do stuff long before a general election. He was saying that what went wrong for him in the Gordon Brown government is they left it too near the general election. Yes, he's invited the Conservatives and the Lib Dems, but not Reform or the SNP or anyone else to these talks. Now, what happened today was that Kemi Badenoch couldn't go. She was having a minor medical thing, which she'd planned in the recess. Stuart Andrew, the Shadow Health Secretary, went along for the Tories. Sir Ed Davey dialed in from France, where he was on holiday. He said he couldn't get back because of his disabled son. I mean, he is an enthusiastic campaigner for social care reform. He's raised it so many times at Prime Minister's Questions with Sir Keir Starmer. Now, Kemi Badenoch's position is that, yeah, OK, we'll talk about it, but we're not going to agree to anything that means higher taxes or higher national insurance. So will there be a consensus? It's always so tough. And as Nick Martin's piece revealed, of course, just every Prime Minister going back to Tony Blair has tried this. And for various reasons, whether it's been a backlash from Tory grandees, I remember, was that against Boris Johnson? I think it was.
Does that mean the Tory grandee?
No, I'm asking you for confirmation that I'm right.
Yes, you are right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. And then Theresa May, do you remember her U-turn during the election campaign? Nothing has changed. But, of course, it had. And then Rishi Sunak and his Chancellor Jeremy Hunt put it off because of the cost, and it's a tricky one. That's why it's not succeeded. But it's personal for Andy Burnham because he talked today about his father with Alzheimer's. He also regards it as unfinished business because he started talking about it years ago when he was Health Secretary.
Yeah, under Gordon Brown. And I mean, cross-party consensus is needed, finding the money is needed, but also working out what the right solution is. There are a lot of different options, aren't there? And they're all quite different.
Yeah, he can kind of back that away a little bit because there's a review. So he can basically say, look, here's the review, and now we're going to look at all these options here. I think it's pretty clear that he sort of favours an NHS sort of add-on kind of service. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this stage. If he thinks he can make that work, I think that's what he's going to go for.
So that would be that people would get their personal care free, but that their accommodation and their food and things would be met by themselves as normal. But it would be that those elements of personal care in the home that you need on top of that could potentially be rolled into sort of an NHS service.
Probably. And then he said, well, look, maybe there's more modest proposals, and maybe there's something in the middle. And so, that's how it goes. This is pitch rolling. But this is like good, old-fashioned professional politics. It's like, look, I've got a bit of time. I'm going to start framing the debate. Look at the kind of packages we're having here, the way that we're discussing it now. How can we corral people? How can we just get them ready for what this might entail? And what it will entail will be financial, but also his attempt to spread that debate. So it's not just, this is how much tax you're going to pay. It's also, remember what happened to your dad. Remember what happened to your granddad. Try to make that a more wholesome debate and a more holistic debate than we've had previously.
It does seem, Simon, that no increase in taxes is a red line for the Conservatives, but it's inevitable that we all as a nation are going to have to pay for this somehow, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think, John's absolutely right, that if you attempt to do something and the Conservatives are then seen to be frustrating a process. If Andy Burnham is successful and decides that he's pitch-rolled it really well and people actually want this and there isn't going to be the right... I mean, not that he needs the backing of the Conservatives. He could technically sort of vote it through if he needed to with the numbers that he's got on his backbenchers. But to be seen to be frustrating a process that so many people are dependent on is not good politics. But I will say this. I mean, John, you gave a very good list of everything that the Tories attempted to do in their various incarnations in government. And there was an idea that there would be a royal commission around social care in order to take away the partisan nature of this. I wonder if that's something that the government might revisit. But as somebody who's a Conservative supporter, I have to say, I am impressed with the Prime Minister coming straight out over the recess and deciding that he is going to start having this conversation, doing it early, because he wants to get these big questions out of the way. And as you say, that is old-style politics. We haven't seen that for a while.
Another big question, of course, is assisted dying, and that was something that's dominated a lot of the end of Keir Starmer's leadership. Andy Burnham was asked about that directly today, and he gave us his position.
I take the view that that debate, and I don't say that there shouldn't be a debate at some point about those issues. Personally, I think there's something that needs to happen first, and that's the fixing of the funding of palliative care and social care. I think it is very challenging to introduce that wider debate in a context of people not receiving that care and having the peace of mind about that care. And that's the way I kind of see this, and that's the position that I will stick to.
So, Ian, has he kicked assisted dying into the long grass?
Well, it's a private member's bill, so there's, the fact that he happened, this is his personal opinion, that's okay, so that's your personal opinion. Lots of other sort of opponents of assisted dying have that personal opinion as well. Doesn't necessarily mean that that vote won't go through. There are complications which I won't bore you with on that bill. You have to keep it exactly the same as it was in the Lords before it left, and it's a bit of a sort of Kafkaesque nightmare trying to get it through. So it's a pretty fraught operation as it is. But him saying that doesn't necessarily kill the idea that it will take place. I'd say also, by the way, when you look internationally, the argument that he raised is not valid. There's lots of really good arguments if you don't want to have assisted dying. But actually, when you look at places like Australia, like Canada, actually palliative care improved with assisted dying. It actually kind of kept it in the news. Whereas when you don't have assisted dying, palliative care tends to dwindle away and people don't speak about it too much.
I mean, what's your feeling about it, Salma? Do you think it is cancelled out slightly by the idea that we're going to reform social care?
I think that this was something that Keir Starmer had talked about a lot and had his personal backing. So if we talk about this from a purely political perspective, it is not something that seems to be on Andy Burnham's personal agenda. And once you take that away, the whole machinery of government that under Keir Starmer had been perhaps not pushed, but was neutral, at the very least, towards the private member's bill, suddenly disappears. So it becomes more difficult for this bill to pass. I think he's answered what Keir Starmer posed as a moral question, as a policy question. And I think that is a stronger position to be in, to say, no, this is not what I'm going to do. So he takes the morality out of it, he takes the personal out of it, and he makes it broad brush. So I think, again, a sensible way to respond to something that he doesn't want to do, that he knows is incredibly emotive and exercises a lot of people.
Feels like giving him a gold star for politicking.
I know, I'm very surprised here. What's happening today? Must be the heat wave.
I thought what was interesting when he was, because this is the first news conference he's done where he's faced, what, half a dozen or more journalists, and his answers were quite long, I thought, and quite thoughtful. That was him answering a question from our own Sam Coates about the assisted dying bill, which comes back to the House of Commons in September. Now, he's a Catholic, he's less keen on it. He didn't say which way he's going to vote, but it's possible it could go the other way in September, although it had a smallish majority in the Commons last time. I think one or two MPs have possibly changed their minds. The new Health Secretary, Yvette Cooper, I think I'm right in saying, voted for it last time. Andy Burdon, of course, was not in the House this time last year when the MPs voted on it.
He didn't support it when he was last an MP, apparently.
Well, I'm not sure did they have a vote on it back then? I can't remember. But it's such a controversial issue, of course, and it's probably one the new government would rather not get bogged down with.
It takes up so much parliamentary time as well,
Commons and Lords.
Yes, and if you are trying to do something radical around social care, if you're going to have a very big agenda that you want to sort of get through quickly, especially difficult policy questions. In many ways, I know people feel very emotionally about this, so I'm just saying this as a practical point. In many ways, you don't want to use that time with something that you aren't that passionate about personally.
I don't agree with you about a Royal Commission, by the way.
Why?
Because that would just be absolutely kicking it into the long grass.
I didn't say I wanted the Royal Commission. I just said that they had thought about it.
He's got Baroness Casey looking into it, and he's told her to speed that up. She talked about a conversation today. I don't think he wants to... I mean, Royal Commissions take years.
They do. John, so social care today's issue, tomorrow, it looks like it's nuclear subs.
It is, indeed. Off to Barrow, according to The Guardian. Barrow in Furness, which, of course, is the home of the nuclear subs, BAE Systems. There's talk of £8.4 billion for submarines. Lots of jobs, of course, coming. HMS Dreadnought, a new nuclear submarine. The Prime Minister is expected to talk about all sorts of new apprenticeships. He talked about those earlier in the week. He's talking about 22,000 apprenticeships. He's talking about jobs all over the country. I mean, we've heard this actually from Sir Keir Starmer and, I guess, John Healey when he was Defence Secretary, now the Chancellor of the Exchequer, how defence can actually really provide jobs. So we'll hear a lot more about that tomorrow. No commitment. He was asked about defence spending at his event today at the care home in North London. He just said, in terms of our NATO commitments, we'll honour those commitments. No commitment on the 3.5% of GDP target or even the 3% target a bit earlier. And it's interesting that James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary, but he's sceptical about tomorrow's announcement, a re-announcement of funding previously confirmed, James Cartledge said to the Tories.
New money. Yeah. OK, John.
I suspect he may be right.
Thanks very much for that. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will take a first look at what else is making the front pages of tomorrow's papers.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. And the Metro carries a striking picture of parched grass in southeast London as drought conditions have been declared across more than half of the UK. According to the Eye, these conditions have prompted advice for the public to take shorter showers. The Express has reaction from assisted dying advocates angry at Andy Burnham's suggestion that the matter should only be considered once his social care reforms are complete. The Star pictures the former Breakfast TV presenter Fiona Phillips, who has Alzheimer's and whose husband says they're encouraged by Mr Burnham's social care proposals. The Sun questions the Prime Minister's plans to tackle cross-channel migration after reports that around 1,000 people made the journey in a single day. On that same story, the Mail has a similarly sceptical view, asking the PM if his plan is working. The Mirror speaks to mothers whose babies' remains were mistreated by the funeral director Robert Bush and are still unaccounted for. The Financial Times reports that the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, has held interest rates for a fifth consecutive time amid concerns over possible inflation tied to the war in Iran. The Guardian has a story concerning the Reform UK ally, George Cottrell. The Telegraph says the Three Lions are facing increasing pressure to boycott the World Cup after FIFA's Infantino attempts to sell it. Well, let's go through those papers in a bit more detail with Salma and Ian. And Salma, this picture on the front of the Metro, it's sobering, isn't it? This is Blackheath in South London. You can see the city there in the background. You can see the O2 and the Thames winding away. But the foreground, the church and the grass, it's entirely burnt, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is quite shocking because it's not sort of that lush, green, verdant English summer that you would normally expect from it. And, you know, Ian mentioned this earlier, but the critical point in this article is that it's the third drought in 5 years, the driest July on record, and this is the new normal. But it's not just what's happening visually, which is obviously a great way of showing us what the impact is, but it's just everything that we do day to day. So whether it be water usage, whether it be how our... I mean, there's a story at the front of the Telegraph about how GP surgeries are having to not take blood anymore, not do blood tests because the temperature is too high and they don't have the refrigeration capacity. So there's all these kinds of implications as a consequence of this. And I think, you know, even if we, the UK, decided to take more action around climate change, the fact is we're not the world's largest polluters and you can't define this by borders. And it's one of the reasons why tackling something like climate change becomes incredibly difficult, and we reach for answers, but they don't necessarily, as we can see, give us the outcomes that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right, you know, like I have a dog, right? Anyone that has a dog goes into, like, military regimes during this kind of weather because you just, like, unless they're out the house at, like, 6 a.m. and back by 7, anything online will tell you it's incredibly dangerous, they're going to get heat stroke. You're basically in panic stations, and then you start going out and doing dog walks at, like, 11:30 at night, if that's the last moment. So suddenly, that's, like, proper lived experience stuff. Like, that's the granular bit of your day. There's a lot of people that own dogs in this country that are suddenly feeling the way that your whole day has been changed by this issue. It's properly visceral, and it's unlike any other political story.
Will you be taking shorter showers?
I would really hate to do that. That's where I would do all my best thinking. Look, fine, I'll make the sacrifice. Okay. I mean, I'll drop steaks before I drop long showers.
Yeah. In terms of how we prepare for this, Salma, I mean, more reservoirs, that's an obvious thing. You were saying, you were pointing out that that's going to take 10 years to build a reservoir.
Yeah.
This isn't a quick fix. And again, it's got to all be funded, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be funded. So the infrastructure around our utilities more generally, whether it be, energy and the way we think about renewables. I mean, I'm actually pro-drilling or granting more licences in the North Sea for energy security, but obviously down the line we have to think about actually how are we thinking about renewables and making them more cost-effective. But it's not just that consumer thing, which is taking shorter showers or not using the hose pipe and using a watering can instead. Infrastructure around reservoirs, actually thinking about biodiversity and where is our water coming from and are we using it efficiently even in nature, and being able to take that water from nature effectively. The leaks that we see with water companies in that infrastructure, are we demanding enough from the water companies to be able to fix them and to secure that water supply? But also critically, we do have this question around new developments that are coming. So data centres, which people are taking huge bets on at the moment, use an extraordinary amount of water. So we have to play all that growth that we do desperately need into that question around water and what are the new cooling systems and new technologies you could potentially have. So there is a lot going on, and the reason there's a lot going on is because water is God-given and it is something that we all need all of the time, and so we need a better strategy around this.
It's interesting, the geopolitics of water, and you think about places like the Middle East where water has become a key factor in lots of the disputes about territory and land, and it's not something I think many of us ever really thought about would become an issue here in the UK. But there we go. Let's move on to social care, because it's on a lot of the papers, understandably. Andy Burnham's big announcement today. We've gone with the front of the Telegraph because it says there that he has hinted at tax rises to fund his flagship care reforms. Ian, if there are to be tax rises, the Conservatives have said that they won't necessarily support that. He might not need their support to get it through, but how do you think it should be funded?
I would love to read that report and then have views. I mean, ultimately, look, it is tempting to go for a more NHS-type model in which almost any way that you go, you're going to be dealing with more tax. You're also probably going to be dealing in a way that we're not really talking about, but he did mention today, with recognition of this in the immigration system. The vast majority of social care workers come from overseas. They would be quite brutally caught up in Shabana Mahmood's current proposals for indefinite leave to remain. They'd be facing 15-year waits. Lots of their children would have trouble getting status, and we'd expect an exodus of many care workers. So actually that'll get tangled up in a way that I don't think people have properly clocked yet.
He did, though, today say that what he wants to see is better pay, better recognition for those in the healthcare service. And perhaps if it led to more people who were from the UK originally going into those industries, that would fill the gap that was left by those migrant workers. And
it's possible that over the medium term, and, you'd have the committee on immigration would make an assessment as to how many people we need at any given moment. That's not where you are right now. So in the short term, that's just simply not where you are, and you're going to want to deal with that in some other manner. What's interesting, by the way, is that he specifically mentioned the Telegraph and the Times today, just after his speech, when he did the Q&A. He said, look, we want to have a different grown-up debate where we look at the trade-offs and where we're sort of all together on this. And then he sort of said, I'm looking to the Times and the Telegraph, among other papers, to be like, are you going to go all, is it tax rises on me? Because if you do, you make it harder for us to have that kind of grown-up debate. And they sort of have, but it's a small story right at the bottom of the page, and it's hints at tax rises. So I think he would look at that on the more smooth end of the scale.
But I think you've got to ask yourself the question, is that where is the tax rise going to come from? So when Andy Burnham was Health Secretary in the last Labour government, 2009, 2010, he talked about there being a 10% on death, basically, a death duty, as it was called at the time, and that going in. But that requires the money to be what you call in government terms hypothecated, which means it can only be spent on social care. The issue with the Conservative government, where they attempted to put a levy on social care or put up the national insurance contributions, was that it gets taken back into general taxation and then it was spent on backlogs in the NHS. There was also a social care precept that was put onto the council tax bills, and councils still have the power to raise that precept. So, I mean, if you look at your council tax bill, you'll probably see a little line there that says how much is supposed to go on social care. So there have been all these attempts to find ways, basically potentially hiding it so people don't see what the cost is. The reality is, will people be willing to pay that against the other trade-offs that are necessary in the rest of the welfare system in order to pay for this. It's not on top of, it's what then has to be taken away. And I think the test for Andy Burnham is he going to be able to face down his own backbenchers on some of the other efficiencies that he's going to have to find in government in order to pay for this?
One of the other elements of it, if we go to the Express, is from Sam Coates' question. It became clear in that press conference that he thinks the assisted dying bill should wait as a result of this. And he's sort of saying, you know, let's get one thing sorted out first. What impact do you think this will have on the ability of that to go through the Commons?
I think the biggest point is that he doesn't seem as pro-assisted dying as his predecessor, and therefore immediately the attention is moved away if the Prime Minister is not interested in. That's just a political reality. I think when he spoke at his press conference today, talking about palliative care being sorted and social care being sorted as a precursor to even having that conversation, I think is an important marker to say that this is not something that he wants to pursue or give government time to. I think that's perfectly reasonable, and I think he's given a policy answer to something that was otherwise a very personal and emotive question.
It's definitely what he did, but I'm not sure that there's many avenues for him to stop it at this point. I mean, look, there's a private member's bill that obviously has its own narrative behind it, of it was essentially talked out of the Lords. You know, the time will be there in the Commons for it. Where I think it could make a difference is it was a pretty tight, I want to put a health warning on this, I think it was 11, the majority. It might have even been less than that in the Commons. It was tight. So then you think how many of those MPs hearing the signals from the Prime Minister would think, well, maybe I'll go a different way. You know, how many members of Cabinet might feel that way? There, I think there could be a distinction. In terms of finding the time, I sort of think he's a bit cornered on that, and I sort of think that bill is probably going to get that time regardless, given the nature of the bill, and in fact it's a free vote and a private member's bill.
If we just show you the front of the Star, they've gone on Fiona Phillips' interview, well, with her husband, Martin Frizzell, who shared a new photo of, they call her a TV breakfast star journalist for many, many years, who has Alzheimer's, and say that this news really cheered her up. I mean, you know, the Prime Minister is speaking from experience here, isn't he, because of his dad having Alzheimer's, and he's seen firsthand the care and the longevity of care that somebody with Alzheimer's can expect. They can be receiving this kind of care for many, many years, can't they?
I also think it's quite rare. We all know someone. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that you go through your life without any of your friends or your cousins or someone being affected by this. And most of us know several people who have had it. And you have sat in the pub with them and you've had that conversation about the house. And that's the best case scenario, by the way. Lots of the time people don't own that house, and yet they're still well above the, I think it's 27,000 that you'd have.
23. Yeah.
23, thank you. Or there's administrative problems with selling the house. There's bureaucratic problems. I mean, you can't bring those funds online. And so you're going through that. The worst situation you can be in life is going through emotional trauma and admin at the same time. And that's basically what these situations demand of you. So I think there's a really broad sense of the impact of this stuff from people. I think that's also why people are quite open to the arguments now. And the sense that he had is, don't do it before an election. And that's not just for the public as well. That's also, you know, for the government machinery, for Whitehall, for the Treasury, if this stuff comes up and saying, like, no, this is something the Prime Minister's putting as one of the sort of flagship policies. This is something they're really getting behind, pointing you towards it. If this can be done, it'll be done in this manner with this kind of professional political operation. But that doesn't necessarily mean it will be.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to football. FIFA's boss, Gianni Infantino, has defended his plan to sell a stake in the World Cup to associates of the Trump family. He says they care about everyone and it's simply a choice for our members. Ian, no laughing, but his proposals have attracted huge criticism from some football associations, some amount of scepticism from some, and UEFA is going to hold an emergency meeting tomorrow to discuss a European boycott to the tournament. He responded in this video put out by FIFA.
We care about everyone. So the benefits of sustained investments, they are already visible. A decade of raising support through FIFA Forward helped nations like Capo Verde, Curaçao, Jordan and Uzbekistan reach the FIFA World Cup for the very first time. We want to help creating the next Capo Verdes. Fans from the corners of these 4 countries of the world and many, many other fans from everywhere in the world would gain immeasurably from this game-changing potential, because it will transform football in their countries. But again, it is simply a choice for our members.
He's doubling down on it, isn't he, Ian?
Well, he's basically just throwing money at people being do what I want. It's like basically $40 million, dollars to each national team. I mean, you can see exactly what the technique is. It's not a very complicated technique. It's the kind of technique that you get if you spend a lot of time hanging out with Donald Trump and think, oh, I wonder how we can, shift some money towards a company that happens to be owned by just a member of your family. So, no, I mean, I think we see what he's up to, but then everyone can kind of see where the end result is, right? Like, once you start sort of heavily privatising and involving investors in this, we already saw in this World Cup what that looked like. Hydration breaks, massive expansion of games, having more time there. We can imagine how that's going to end up after a few years of this, of having, well, why restrict yourself to just one hydration break in each half? Why not have 2 or 3, because there's more time for advertising? Why not have basically every single country in the world can have their team in, the World Cup can go on for a year, and we might as well hold it every 2 years. And the fact that footballers are basically falling down dead from exhaustion, halfway through them won't be of any consequence at all. I think the reason that people were so opposed to it is because it's so utterly obvious the direction of travel that he's pointing towards and the techniques that he's using together.
Do you think it's selling the soul of the game?
I just don't understand what the point of the World Cup is if it's commercialised to that extent, because it's supposed to be that opportunity for nations to compete against each other in this forum. I mean, why don't we just privatise the Olympics as well whilst we're at it? Sports teams already...
We could shorten some of those really long cross-country races, couldn't we?
Or we'll just ditch a couple of sports that don't, air well, don't get the ratings or whatever it might be.
In the middle of them.
It's just... I think that sport as an idea and as a profit-making entity, that's fine. People have their teams, people have... we have the Premier League. It's an incredible export. It's made lots of money. It's contributed a lot to the economy. Maybe it is at the cost of some of the lower league teams, but the whole point of international sports at that level is supposed to sit above that commercialisation. One of the reasons you want to take it is because it has net benefits of being able to host a tournament like that. And to some extent, it's got to be a little bit of a level playing field, is that we're all there to compete for national pride as opposed to some people making some money out of it. I'm conservative. I love free markets. I love business and entrepreneurialism and people making profits and all that kind of stuff, but it has to add some kind of value. And I think, if anything, this sort of takes away from the value of the World Cup. And I wonder how many people would still want to participate. If Europe is talking about a boycott where, some of the great teams are, where some of the big players that you want to watch the World Cup for when you're not sort of just there for your own home team, if that suddenly is taken away, is it still the same game? Is it still the same tournament?
Is it still football? Yeah, exactly. Thanks both very much. Well, we've got lots more to discuss after the break. We're going to hear from the stars of the new Spider-Man movie on the red carpet in London.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand,
Wow.
here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Tell us who you're looking for.
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first.
There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition.
This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous.
We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Now, the London premiere for the newest Spider-Man film, Brand New Day, has been held this evening in Leicester Square. We'll hear from two of the stars, Tom Holland and Zendaya, in just a moment. But first, here's a flavour of what fans can expect from the latest instalment.
Faced with a threat we can't control, one we can't even see. You're the only one who's immune to it. You're the only one who can sense it. What do you think they're looking for?
Well, the red carpet was very busy at this evening's premiere. Let's hear from the two stars.
I mean, it's been an absolute dream come true, you know, playing this character for 10 years, growing with him, seeing how the character's grown, listening to the fans and understanding what they want and trying to bring that to life has been such a joy. And to be here today in London, my hometown, this is the first time we've done this here. It feels incredibly special.
It's been such a privilege. It's been one of the highlights of my life, being able to do this, meeting the people that I've been able to meet, growing the friendships and the beautiful relationships that I've had on this film, and just growing up. I mean, it's been my entire 20s. That's so much life. And being able to grow with these characters and also with the fans, you know, so many people have grown up with us as well, and I think that's a privilege, you know.
Sweet, aren't they? And so viewers who don't know that they starred together in the first one and they are now together in real life. They got married. They've grown up together. It's sweet. Have you seen it?
It's very sweet. I haven't seen it. Spider-Man's not my top Marvel pick.
Which is?
Superman.
That's not Marvel. I'm so sorry.
Is it not?
I don't mean to do this to you, but that's DC.
Oh, OK. So it's not Marvel then, but I do, yeah.
It's not your kind of superhero franchise.
It's not my superhero, but my children love Spider-Man. I mean, that's their Halloween costumes the whole time. And my 4-year-old's got one that's got, like, built-in muscles in it, which is a very odd thing, but they love it. So I'm sure at some point they're going to be able to watch the Spider-Man
You know,
thing.
I was just saying that we've got the original Spider-Man costume in our Sky Centre.
Oh, yes!
Yeah, but without the padding, which apparently was needed on the rear end for Tom.
What?
Allegedly.
Top Spider-Man trivia.
Top fact. Will you be enjoying this franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he might be the best Spider-Man. Is it like he works as a character?
Wow, that was a big thing to say.
I think he's better than Tobey Maguire. I mean, he's just very, very good at it. And actually, their relationship kind of comes through. You actually get that sense of, like, this is a real couple. Like, he's a great superhero because you can kind of imagine, but he's, like, got no money, he's got girl problems, he can't get a job, you know, he's living with his aunt. It's like, basically, it's the opposite of, like, perfect Superman and billionaire Batman. He's believable, and there's a reason that these films do so well.
OK, we're going to leave it there, but we'll be back next hour. Coming up, more news about the drought, which is now official over more than half of England.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Tonight on The Wrap, it is official. More than half of England is in drought. Some parts of the country are experiencing their fourth heat wave of the year. July is expected to be the driest month on record, and more than 200 wildfires have been reported in the past fortnight alone. The government's to spend more than £8 billion building new nuclear submarines in Barrow and Furness, protecting and creating, it says, thousands of jobs. Free speech, incitement, or a storm in a T-shirt, police say no further action will be taken against Green leader Zach Polanski for reposting an image of a man with a picture of a guillotine and the words, "We're only making plans for Nigel." And FIFA boss Gianni Infantino defends his plans to put the World Cup up for sale. He says they care about everyone and it's simply a choice for our members. European nations meet tomorrow to discuss a boycott. We discuss today's biggest stories with a former Conservative special advisor, Salma Shah, and the journalist and author Ian Dutt. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers in half an hour. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us, and a good evening too to Salma and Ian. Now, for most of us, the summer heat and even the drought won't cause too many problems. It's an excuse to go to the beach or reach for an ice cream. But for Britain's farmers, it spells disaster. Fields dry out, crops fail, and there's the ever-present risk of fire. Salma, in the south of England has seen just 1% of its usual rainfall in a month. Your thought?
This is what climate change feels like, and it's what it looks like. And so then we look at this kind of imagery, which feels quite alien and doesn't feel like England's green and pleasant at all. It's a foretaste of what is to come unless we do something about this.
Salma?
Just the fact that we're seeing record heat means that actually we are going to have to start taking long-term action, and we need to see something from the government on this pretty rapidly.
Well, our science editor, Tom Clark, has this report.
England's fields are parched, some even scorched by wildfires. Rivers and reservoirs are running low and the heat waves continue. All the ingredients for drought. And now it's official. The Environment Agency has declared half of England is in drought, with 7 regions across central, eastern and southern England affected. Almost a third of the country, including Yorkshire, parts of the southeast and northwest, is now in prolonged dry weather status, putting increasing pressure on farmers and water resources. Meanwhile, only the northeast is seeing normal conditions for this time of year. Why? Well, England's only had 7% of its average July rainfall. The south of England, just 1%. On top of that, there's the severe heat. 12 consecutive days, 30 degrees or above, driving off what little moisture there is in the soil. Drought criteria informed by river gauges, rainfall data and monitoring sites like this one, part of a UK-wide network measuring soil moisture based, get this, on how it scatters cosmic rays from space.
The Cosmic Ray Neutron Sensor provides a field-scale measure of soil moisture. So we're counting neutrons over an area probably about 200 metres radially from this point. So if we're looking around us now, that's covering this field and a few of the adjacent fields as well.
What are we looking at here?
What we're seeing here are probably very similar values in terms of the soil moisture for the site, but we're seeing it reach those values very quickly and probably a bit earlier on in the season than we did previously.
So what does a declaration of drought actually mean? Well, for most of us, not very much. 7 out of the 9 big water companies in England have already imposed hosepipe bans on us. But if you're a farmer, it spells disaster.
At the minute, everything is being challenged, and so that is a direct result on our cash flow, you know, and farmers won't have the cash to reinvest in their enterprises at all. The whole aspect of the industry is depressed, is the easiest way of saying it, and it is right the way across the board, in the drought areas in particular.
The declaration signals to farmers, water companies and industry to prepare for lean times, possibly for a long time. Rain forecast next week will be insufficient to reverse the drought. The long-range outlook is for high pressure and drier than average weather. An end to this drought may not come till autumn. Tom Clark, Sky News in Hungerford, Berkshire.
And this comes, Salma, at a time when there are so many big questions for the water companies anyway about how they're governed, the state of leaks, the state of pollution in our waterways. And it now seems to be that, you know, that when we have a lot of rain, they pollute the waterways, and when we have no rain, we can't use any anyway.
No, and it speaks to that whole question around water infrastructure. So it's not just about the water companies and the leaks, which are obviously important, and I think a lot of consumers will be asking questions of those companies as to how they're preparing for this, these now more frequent occurrences of drought, and are we getting sort of the best value out of that infrastructure? But also, you know, building reservoirs, which take about a decade to come in, and making sure that we have that water supply there as and when we need it because of growing population and because of climate change. But there is other aspects to this as well, which could potentially mean economic shocks down the line. I mean, in Tom's report, you heard there from the farmer who's talking about his own profitability, but this is crops and livestock that will suffer and will have depletion, which will affect, unfortunately, prices down the line and also UK food supply. So I think we have to be really clear-sighted about the implications of this kind of change in our climate and what we actually need to do to help those people who are farming and who are looking at water infrastructure to see what we can do to secure it, because we alone cannot change what's happening in the climate as a country, but we can do things to actually help us to deal with this new reality.
Anine, I heard today on the radio a farmer who's diversifying from doing peas to doing chickpeas as well, because that's a crop that thrives in warmer climates. And I suppose for a lot of farmers, they're going to have to pivot. But what about nature? I mean, nature can't pivot, can it? You know, the bees and the small creatures in the rivers that are drying up haven't got anywhere else to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's an absolute disaster for our biodiversity. And even when it comes to pivot, I mean, there's a limitation on what you can do. I remember being told about sort of 10, 15 years ago by a wine writer that Bordeaux wines would quite soon be made in England. Because basically the climate's just getting too hot, you wouldn't be able to make that kind of wine there. And slowly but surely, what have you seen over the last 10 to 15 years? It's almost like the comedy version of what we're seeing. It's people going, oh, it turns out the English wine's actually quite good now. It's good. Yeah, but not for a very good reason. It's because the climate is changing. There are only so many opportunities around that. Then, of course, you have to think, if this is what we're seeing here, and what we're seeing in Bordeaux right now are fires that threaten human life and are threatening an evacuation of the city. Like, just how severe are things going to get overseas? What impact will that have on us? Just like you pointed out, economically. Well, what about immigration? What about people flows? People don't really want like much more immigration to this country. Well, you're going to want to deal with climate change, because one of the things you will see is this is the modest end of the scale, what we're facing here, compared to what people are facing in other countries, even today.
Well, let's move on to politics. And Andy Burnham is to spend £8.4 billion on 4 nuclear-powered submarines. The first one may not be ready for service, though, until the 2030s. The Prime Minister says keeping this country safe is the first responsibility of any government. But security is not only about what we build, it is about who builds it and who benefits from it. The submarines produced in Barrow will protect Britain for decades to come, and the 47,000 jobs and apprenticeships will change lives, both in this town and in dozens of places like it. Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, has just joined us in the studio now. John, so the Prime Minister's finding £8 million, or is it £8 billion for these nuclear submarines. At the same time, we're talking about social care and how we find the money for that. It seems that he is finding money for defence in his only second week in government.
But is it new money? According to James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary, it's a re-announcement of funding previously confirmed. This sounds very much very similar to a lot of stuff we've heard from Sir Keir Starmer when he was Prime Minister. But the point Mr Burnham is obviously out to make here is, one, we're tough on defence. You just read out the quote there, keeping the country safe and so on. But also that it provides good jobs in places like Barrow, in fairness, where he's visiting. And he actually talks about from Barrow to Bristol, and he talks about places like Plymouth and Portsmouth as well. So if we are going to spend lots and lots of money on defence, which we're under pressure to do, let's have British jobs. I mean, British jobs, British workers. That was Gordon Brown's phrase. Remember that one? I remember it at a
controversial.
At a TUC conference. He's talking here about British money spent on British workers, British firms and British skills in the places that were written off for 40 years. So it's a defence boost and a jobs boost. That's what he's talking about. A lot of money, as you said, and it's all going to take a long time. There are those who think that the MOD squanders money on warships that don't sail, guns that don't fire and all that sort of thing. But anyway, the fact is that we're getting this big announcement from the Prime Minister, but some are questioning whether it is really new money.
Simon, do you think this would be welcomed by the Conservatives?
Well, I mean, anything that sort of increases defence spending is a good thing. I think the Conservatives have always taken that position traditionally, and also in this new world where NATO is under pressure. by the US president, and the world is becoming more dangerous. And clearly we have threats to Britain that we didn't have a decade ago. I can imagine the Conservatives are going to be very supportive of it. I do think that finding that money and reaching those targets is going to be politically contentious, but I don't think anything that the Prime Minister said today, particularly around apprenticeships and ensuring that skills are being utilised well in this growing defence sector, I think you could find quite a lot of consensus across the way in Parliament on that.
Yeah, I mean, jobs, especially in that part of the world, in the northeast and the northwest, are not necessarily easy to come by, and it would certainly be welcomed.
Yeah, it would. The second part of that then is trying to get involved in the European arms process as well. Like, those talks were ongoing before, they fell apart. There's a huge market there. You look at the amount that the Germans are spending on defence, across Europe are ramping up of defence spending. We need to be part of that process. And a much sort of broader, also part of the British negotiation, is trying to get them to have a broader sense of what made in Europe is, so that it would actually include the UK. So it isn't just this homegrown part that we're dealing with, but also where can we set up?
Countries tend to be protectionist about their own military. That is true even in the European Union. I mean, there isn't a lot of cross-European military selling. I mean, the Germans will procure from German businesses, the French will procure from French businesses.
That's historically been the case, but over the last even few weeks, there's been progress on trying to get past that, because there's basically a recognition of the fact that it has to be a European process when you're operating at this scale and trying to build as quickly as they want to build.
Just a reminder of the dangerous world that we are in at the moment. Just as we're talking about that, Reuters are telling us that there have been explosions heard in Kiev this evening, so we'll bring you more on that when we get it. Right, let's just move on and stay with politics, but move on to this story about whether it's free speech, incitement or a storm in a T-shirt. Police say no further action will be taken against the Green leader, Zach Polansky, over an image of a man he reposted on social media with a picture of a guillotine and the words "we're only making plans for Nigel." Salma, do you think it's right that the police aren't taking this any further?
I mean, I don't want to comment on the ins and outs of the legality of it. If the Met Police say there isn't a case to answer, then I wouldn't refute that. I do think, though, that it was a pretty crass joke and in very bad taste. And Zach Polansky was right to take down his repost of it. You know, you can be forgiven. All political leaders make mistakes like this. In time or similar, you know, reposting things that they haven't really checked properly. But it is, I think, a lesson to somebody who wants to be on a much more national stage about how careful you have to be about the things that you endorse.
Anine, we've got your piece that you wrote for The Eye on this.
Oh.
Just a little plug there for you.
Thank you. It was very good.
Thank me later. What are your feelings about this?
I just think it's just horribly embarrassing for everyone. I mean, obviously, Zach Polansky, you're very kind. You're way kinder than I. I mean, you're the leader of a political party. It's like, look at the things that you are putting online before you put it online. And it's not as if this is his first offence either. Remember, Gold is Green was, what, 2 months ago? He's just not learning. Like, he's just not learning, and you've got a responsibility. And to be fair, like, progressives deserve better leadership on that side than the leadership that he's currently providing. And then just the venal, mendacious disingenuousness of Nigel Farage to act like a man who, not so long ago, was talking about the need to express cold fury after a murder just before a bunch of riots happened in Southampton, who was in the US saying that Britain's free speech rights are falling apart and actually the US should probably chuck some tariffs on us to punish his own country for laws that itself has passed, who sets himself up as a free speech warrior, and then as soon as he sees a T-shirt online accidentally posted by another political leader, he calls the police and says, you should arrest that guy. So, like, I mean, come on, like, how could anyone say that there's any consistency whatsoever to either his policies or to his character?
Well, Reform have put out a statement this evening and they say, once again, we see that we are living in two-tier Britain. Zach Polansky is allowed to get away with inciting murder, whilst ordinary people up and down the country get a knock at the door for making a joke online. And in response, the Green Party have said the police have examined the evidence and concluded that no crime was committed. This was obvious from the start, as was the fact that Reform were always using this as a political football for their own cynical purposes to distract from questions about their dodgy donations. Let's bring in John Craig. John, do you think this is the end of this matter now?
Oh, probably not, because Mr. Farage will be very angry at this because he gave a television interview late this afternoon, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and it was about 7 o'clock when the Metropolitan Police first of all said, no, we're not going to take action. He started off today writing an article in the Daily Mail saying Mr. Polanski should face the consequences. And the consequences he was talking about, obviously, was either arrest or prosecution or something like that, some sort of sanction against him. Now, what the police have said, there were two statements from the police this evening. There was, first of all, one from the Met, which said the threshold hadn't been reached for any action, also said there was no evidence that a crime was actually going to be committed. But they did say that they were going to refer to Avon and Somerset Police, the chap who appeared in the photo. Well, within minutes, Avon and Somerset said no. They said a senior detective had looked at it and decided no. I sensed reading the police statements, two of them, they thought this was all rather frivolous and rather silly, and the police have got better things to do. So Mr. Farage will no doubt be very angry because he's had a double rebuff from two police forces, and well, I wonder if Mr. Polanski will be smirking or whether he'll think, phew, I shouldn't do that, I better not do that again. As you rightly say, there was that incident in May when he posted something about the was it the Golders Green attack, wasn't it? Yeah. So he's got form for these sort of silly mistakes.
Yeah, needs to be a bit more cautious there. Well, moving on, FIFA boss Gianni Infantino has defended his plan to sell a stake in the World Cup to associates of the Trump family. He says they care about everyone and it's simply a choice for our members. But the proposals have attracted huge criticism from football associations, and UEFA is to hold an emergency meeting tomorrow to discuss a European boycott of the tournament. Well, Infantino responded in this video put out by FIFA.
We care about everyone. So the benefits of sustained investments, they are already visible. A decade of raising support through FIFA Forward helped nations like Capo Verde, Curaçao, Jordan and Uzbekistan reach the FIFA World Cup for the very first time. We want to help creating the next Capo Verdes. Fans from the corners of these four countries of the world and many, many other fans from everywhere in the world would gain immeasurably from this game-changing potential, because it will transform football in their countries. But again, it is simply a choice for our members.
Salma, is this about anything more than lining someone's pockets?
I can appreciate that for an international tournament there will be amazing commercial opportunities, and there have been, around for advertisers and people who have branding deals with teams and stadiums and things like that. But to actually take a commercial stake in what should be really an international gathering of world football, I think really defeats the point of the World Cup and why you go, and everybody's kind of like emotions and, backing your nation, and that thing that you can only get in international sporting events, which is, the whole world participating in something together that isn't a commercial interest. It is just an interesting global event. I mean, we said it earlier, well, are we suddenly going to sort of make the Olympics, a commercial entity that's owned by somebody? It changes the dynamic of it entirely. And I find it really odd because there are plenty of opportunities to make money in sport. If there's burgeoning football fans and, a new league that could come out in a country that has been underexploited in terms of football, not like England where we have the Premier League, then maybe investors want to go and put their money there. But why take over a piece of the World Cup? That I don't understand.
Are they ruining the game? Can they ruin the game?
Yeah, you can. I mean, look, this World Cup alone, they started fundamentally altering the way that a game operates. those hydration breaks, you could actually make a case for the hydration breaks making the game more strategic in some way, you know, an increase in the amount of sort of ability to talk to your players.
Thomas Tuchel did seem to use them to sort of quite good effect, didn't he?
Yeah, so I mean, there is that case there, right? But like, it's not like that's what anyone was attempting to do. What they were attempting to do was put advert breaks inside of a football game. So honestly, in that case, you're just like, well, fine, so you're just going to fundamentally alter the structures of how this game has operated for around 100 years. Okay, so, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. And maybe if you were doing it, you should be doing it on a more thoughtful basis rather than just how can you engorge yourself on more money. He himself is likely to become incredibly rich if this thing goes through. His only way of getting it through is to basically start...
Isn't it?
Who would have thought? Exactly.
Yeah.
And, of course, the trouble that he's finding, and the reason the resistance is so vociferous and so quick, is it's hard to think of a less popular, I was going to say man, but I think human being, on the face of the planet. Like, when was the last time you met someone who was sympathetic to Infantino? He makes Liz Truss look like a fountain of popularity. Like, he's just a man whose reputation is in the dirt, especially after the last World Cup and the moves he made once he received calls from Donald Trump about fundamentally, you know, taking over a disciplinary function. So on that basis, you think you're clearly doing it for greed, you clearly have no interest in what the game involves, you're clearly willing to mutilate the game for your own financial benefit, and you have no standing to see it through. So what should happen over the next few days might be very interesting indeed.
Say what you're thinking, that's what I say. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about social care. Don't go anywhere.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Prime Ministers have been promising to fix the crisis in social care for at least 30 years. One of them was Theresa May. He spoke to my colleague Yelda Hakim about Andy Burnham's efforts to build a cross-party consensus with Labour and the Lib Dems.
Do you think that Kemi Badenoch needs to, work cross-party with Andy Burnham to try and find improvements in social care, which this country clearly needs?
Well, this is clearly an important issue for the British people, and I think the idea of finding some cross-party solution, of having some cross-party talks, is fine. But those have got to be meaningful. What we've seen today, yesterday and today, is a very short meeting called at a very short notice. If Andy Burnham is correct and right in his own mind that he really wants cross-party discussion and cross-party solutions, then he has to be prepared to sit down and have those meaningful discussions which people are able to look at the issues, to look at the proposed solutions, to comment on them, and not just have the discussion, but the Prime Minister has to be willing to listen to the other party.
And should Britain, the British public, expect to pay higher taxes to get there?
Well, the key issue about, you made the reference to every Prime Minister. I found a solution for social care. I proposed a solution for social care. Every Prime Minister has looked at this. But the issue that always remains on the table is who will pay. Kemi Badenoch's been very clear. Happy to sit down and have these talks, but this can't be about increased taxes.
And that is the key question, isn't it, for both of you? Who will pay? We're all going to have to pay, aren't we, Ian?
Yeah, it's also a bit more of a problem because this is just one of, let's say, 4 or 5 very expensive issues that we've talked about just in the last hour. Do you know what I mean? Like, not even more. I mean, when we start talking about defence, what it would cost to properly fund that, there are so many issues out there that you look at them and just think, this is an awful lot of money. And at the end of it, you can say we're just going to do it by taxing the rich and taxing companies and, private and billion. OK, there is a limit on how much money you can make that way. And in the end, when you need to start solving these things, no matter what the system is that you're using, you are going to start taxing, at very least, the middle classes and probably more broadly than that.
Kemi Badenoch said that she won't support tax rises, but would there be a way that the Conservatives would support any taxation for this, do you think? If it's something that was universal?
Well, I think you have to think about where it's going to come from, what the trade-off is elsewhere in the government budget, because, we have it in the eye here that a rough figure that's been put on this is £18.5 billion, and that is a year-on-year new amount of money that you're going to have to find, not least withstanding there's all these other pressures, as you say. Well, something's going to have to give, because we are currently running 95% debt to GDP, and that is not sustainable. So, yes, we all accept that there has to be a solution to social care. And, yes, Andy Burnham has actually been very effective in talking about this and in order to try and pincer the other political parties to bring them in towards a solution. But Theresa May is right. If you're going to bring parties in, they have to have some skin in the game and they have to help you come up with the solution. It cannot be just sort of a communications sort of partnership. It has to be a material one.
And also on the Eye, on its inside pages, there's the line about the Prime Minister said today that carers should be paid in line with the NHS. And Ian, I mean, it's already enormously expensive care, but this sounds like he's suggesting it should be more expensive, and that's going to be a part of it.
Yeah, the question is ultimately who ends up paying on that basis. And you're right, like it is, any time you hear the conversation from someone talking about what it is to put their parents into care or something like that, it's astonishing the numbers that you hear. You sort of can't really believe the numbers, that people are paying out week by week in order for this to happen. But there's also a thing about sort of trying to increase the quality of care by increasing the dignity of the people who work in it. So when you speak to carers, the stories they often get is just they're treated very, very badly, the contracts are very, very poor, the pay is very, very bad. And when your bosses don't have any respect for what you do, even if it's just about being able to sit down and have a cup of tea with someone rather than just quickly doing the operations you're supposed to do, well, OK, so the person who gets that care suffers from that, because they probably would value that cup of tea just as much as they would being taken to the toilet or having the curtains open at that particular moment. So, like, it has to be a broader conversation than just about money. He's right to raise it, but again, These are all, to a certain extent, zero-sum issues, and they do end up with us having a realistic conversation about tax.
And the Front of the Express campaigners are also unhappy about the assisted dying law, and that must wait, Andy Burnham said in response to a question from Sky News today. Is he right to park that discussion for another day?
Well, I have a personal view on this, and then there's kind of like the strategic political view. Personally, I'm delighted because I was always against the assisted dying bill. It's an incredibly emotive subject, but from my perspective, this is going to take up a lot of government time and also communications oxygen. So if Andy Burnham wants to get on and do other things, then this is something that he does not want to give his time to. I think talking about it in policy terms and talking about him wanting to fix palliative care before he has that conversation is a way of having the policy discussion as opposed to the emotive one.
OK. Well, if you want to watch the rest of Yalda's interview with Theresa May as well, that is on The World tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Well, let's take a look and see what else is making the front pages of tomorrow's papers. The Metro carries a striking picture of parched grass in the southeast of London, Blackheath, as drought conditions have been declared across more than half of the UK. There is that image. Now, according to the Eye, the conditions have prompted advice for the public to take shorter showers. Maybe not if you're sitting next to people in part of your job. The Express has reaction from assisted dying advocates angry that Andy Burnham's suggestion that the matter should only be considered once his social care reforms are complete. The Star pictures the former Breakfast TV presenter Fiona Phillips, who has Alzheimer's and whose husband says that they're encouraged by Mr Burnham's social care proposals. The Sun questions the Prime Minister's plans to tackle cross-channel migration after reports that around 1,000 people made a single journey in a day. And that same story, the Mail, has a similarly sceptical view, asking the PM if his plan is working. Another of his ideas comes under scrutiny in the Times. Regional mayors could be given the power to offer tax rebates to local residents. And the Mirror talks to mothers whose babies' remains were mistreated by the funeral director Robert Bush and are still unaccounted for. The Financial Times reports that the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, has held interest rates for a 5th consecutive time amid concerns over possible inflation tied to the war in Iran. And The Guardian has a story concerning the Reform UK ally George Cottrell. And The Telegraph says England are facing increasing pressure to boycott the World Cup after FIFA President Gianni Infantino's proposal to sell shares in the tournament to private investors. Well, let's take a look at the Mail, which has a couple of really striking images on its front pages. Hundreds more migrants, they say, rushing to board Channel dinghies just hours after the new PM boasted of success in stopping them. And you can see those images there on the front of the page, and then below those in boats already overloaded on a dinghy off the coast of France yesterday. And Salma, this all ties in with Chris Philp, who's on a fact-finding mission, I suppose, in inverted commas, out there in the Channel. Had a bit of bad luck, got a little bit too close to a French warship, didn't he? Got a little bit scared.
Well, the footage that he took was, or the reports that came out of his trip were that the French warship fired warning shots towards him. Now, I think the French government have denied this, or said it was just a regular...
yeah, they say they weren't... Yeah, they were firing at
exercise,
him.
yes,
Yeah,
they were firing
at him. It was a routine
him.
training exercise.
But I have to say, I mean, if you were out in the middle of the Channel, sort of looking at migrant crossings, and all of a sudden a French naval vessel decided to fire its guns, whether it was aimed at you or not, it would be a pretty frightening situation. So I have to say, I hope he's OK. And
I interviewed him yesterday. He seems fine.
OK, good. Just to check.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it shows that there is still an incredible interest, given that it's on the front page of the Daily Mail, in this story, and that we haven't yet gotten to grips with this perennial, well, as it is seasonal, because, the numbers go up in the summer, issue of small boat crossings.
But the numbers are down, aren't they? I mean, they're down 45%.
45%, from 43,000 to 23,000, a little bit touch and go on the side over the course of the year, and 20% on where we were the year before that. This is actually a situation that is improving. Doesn't mean it will stay that way, but it's improving for now. And yet I don't think that's really reflected in this coverage. Like, it would be easier to take these front pages seriously if there'd been any attempt to tell their readers comparably what has actually improved in this area. Instead, it's this...
I guess the point that they're making is it's improving from a level that was very bad, but it's still not a great situation, full stop.
Yeah, and I think what it also shows is that, you know, if 700 people are still able to come over, there is clearly still some kind of issue in the system. And there are many complex reasons as to why people are coming over. And there's lots of different stories that you can tell about the types of people that are coming over. You know, you had a huge influx of Albanian people coming in at one point as well that were driving the numbers up. But I do think that actually it is a question, again, of control and how you're... and I don't want to take away from the government's success on this. Clearly, they have had some success in bringing the numbers down, but it's incredibly complicated. But it is then a question of control still.
I'm not convinced that it is government policy that has actually led to the reduction. It's perfectly possible for it to be things that are happening in other parts of Europe and not even in Europe. Actually, Libya, one of the examples, and probably not in ways that we would love. The problem is that when the media discussion of it, you know, programmes excluded, but especially not excluding that kind of front page, is so kind of hysterical and vitriolic and tribal, it's very hard to have a meaningful conversation about it. It's like, yeah, are the numbers high? Yeah, they are. But 13,000 over the year is not a completely insane number. It's a kind of number that we think this is a problem. The problem is being reduced. We're getting some impression of what might work, including working with international partners. And we can bring this back to a conversation that involves reason and hopefully maybe even at some point a trace element of compassion rather than the histrionic way in which it's covered in the right-wing press.
OK. Let's move on from that to the Times, front page of the Times. And this is another of Andy Burnham's policies that he's talked about over the last few days. Local leaders might be able to hand revenue back to residents under his radical devolution plan. So you get a tax rebate from your mayor. I don't know how you go about doing that. That sounds like a lot of forms.
This is incredibly complicated. I used to work in the local government department, and one of the questions around devolution is, yes, you can say that you're giving powers down to devolved authorities, combined authorities, but there's this concept of fiscal devolution, which is, can you actually control your money and your spending? And without that, can you actually say that mayors have got any powers? So this is a really interesting first attempt, I think, at potential fiscal devolution coming down the track.
But we pay our money to HMRC centrally, our tax.
So this is about the formula that you use in central government, where you have business rates that are collected from all around the country. Because, say, you know, we're sat here in central London. Central London will collect higher business rates than, say, I'll take an example off the top of my head, like maybe my hometown of Accrington. And you will put it all in a pot, and there's a mechanism that redistributes it. So I think, and I've only had a cursory read of this story, but it is quite exciting for devolution nerds like me, is that the idea is that you might be able to take a little bit more of that capital through that redistribution mechanism if you're showing that you can have some growth, or you have some growth in your local patch. Now, is that truly fiscal devolution, or is that a little bit more of a sweetener because you've done a good job? You know, there's ways that you can argue it, but it is interesting because what if we do end up in this new devolution era with having different rates of tax all across the country? What if that is what fiscal devolution is going to bring?
Yeah, it would certainly encourage more people to perhaps move to different areas.
Well, and that might be the case. If you get a lower tax bill, you know, you might want to go, and that is a way of rebalancing the economy. But then there is a question about fairness, isn't there?
There is. OK, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up next, we will take a first look at what is making the front pages of some more of the papers and some of the insides as well.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at what's on some of the inside of tomorrow's papers and looking inside the Times. This is on page 2. President Trump claims Andy Burnham's told him he's ready to drill, baby drill, in the North Sea, apparently.
Yes. I mean, look, I think we should take this with a slight pinch of salt, not in terms of it's not true, but just in fact that Trump clearly has no idea what he's talking about. He later on says it would make Britain a really rich country. I mean, we're already a rich country and it's not going to make us significantly richer than it is. And then he later goes on to actually state that he doesn't actually know Andy Burnham's name and just keeps on calling him the new gentleman. So I think we need to just keep some kind of restraint as to the level of granular detail that this man is capable of.
OK, but it does possibly signify which direction Andy Burnham's going to go on the North Sea, which you were saying you would definitely support.
Yeah, I would support it. I think it's important that, you know, we are trying at least to think about our energy security. I mean, there's lots of arguments about whether it's actually going to have any impact on bills or what it actually means, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Our intention should be clear. But look, every UK Prime Minister wants to have a good relationship with whoever is sitting in the White House. And you're right, maybe he did forget his name for a moment. But if you're the US President, everybody sort of doffs their cap to you. I think it's not beyond the realms of possibility that you're not going to remember everyone, especially someone who's changed. But
and we have had a lot of change.
And we've had so many, even in his tenure. But I think it's really important that there seems to be something of some positivity, because they'll have to talk about so many other issues, not least Iran and opening the Straits and the use of, you know, military bases at some point. They'll have to have a meeting and a bilateral. It would be nice to think that they're not going to start it off on the worst foot.
I think the relationship's changed, though, fundamentally. Like, everything you just said was true up until a few months ago. And when that moment came that Keir Starmer actually didn't do what the US president wanted at the start of the war in Iran, and there was about a week where lots of British public opinion, especially in the newspapers, was like, no, you're supposed to be involved in this war. And then over the course almost of a weekend, it flipped. And everyone sort of thought, that war looks absolutely terrible and chaotic, and we would not have been clear on when we could have left. Suddenly, that was a real difference. I mean, you could see Keir Starmer after that kind of selling himself. In fact, one of the main achievements that he would list when he was leaving Downing Street was, oh, I stood up to the US on the war in Iran. Then you look at Andy Burnham, like his interview over the weekend with Laura Kunzberg, talking about his relationship with the American president. A little bit more distant, you know, saying, well, sure, look, I'm going to try and make it work, but I have to stand up for my country and these will be difficult situations. So that relationship, I think, particularly with this president, I'm sure it'll change if things change later, is a bit cooler than the ones that we've been expecting. And some of the political incentives, I think, have shifted over the course of this year in particular.
Look, everybody wants to have their Hugh Grant moment with the US president as well as having a good relationship. And I think you're right. I think that is the correct analysis. But we are very dependent on the US still. So having a more equal footing is good, but let's be careful about what that actually looks like.
Well, staying with Trump briefly, the front of the Telegraph, he's apparently vowed to give Iran a beating. He used slightly stronger language, didn't he, really? An expletive-laden tirade against Iran. I suppose, Ian, you're not particularly surprised?
To be honest, I sort of feel like if I'd seen this article at any point over the last 4 months, I can't tell that it's any different to anything else. I mean, this is like Groundhog Day in hell, basically. So every day, a new threat or a new statement that actually they're our best mates, we're going to let them do whatever they want, we've got deals, everyone's got a great deal on the table. Followed the next day by saying, oh, I might just threaten genocide against the people, and then the next day saying, no, the deal's back on, we've got negotiations, it's going to be fine, and then the next day they're going to bomb them again. And if anyone can still remember the number of times that we've read these things, the only time that it even really makes the news now is when he uses 2 swear words in a sentence rather than just 1, which in itself doesn't seem like a great threshold for a US president to have reached.
OK, hardly believe that one there. Quick look at some of the lighter stories. Inside the Times, they've got this great picture of archaeologists at work reassembling a fresco in Pompeii. They're saying it's a 2,000-year-old jigsaw, Salma. I mean, Crikey, anyone who's tried to do a jigsaw, this looks like an epic task, doesn't it?
And I have to say, it's absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to see how long it's going to take them first off, and what it's going to look like, because this is the stuff that's, you know, for historians, dreams are made of, to actually understand what it looked like. But crikey, you know, a 2,000-year-old jigsaw being painstakingly put together by these archaeologists, I'm not sure that I'd be up for that, if I'm perfectly honest.
Me possibly not. Salma and Ian, thanks very much for taking us through all those papers. Coming up in sport, could Chelsea be closing in on two of the most surprising transfers of the summer?
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous.
We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Time now to get the latest from Sky Sports News with James.
Right, here we are. First day back, I suppose. It kind of feels like, doesn't it? How is the feeling? Because everything feels quite new around here.
Of course, first day of pre-season with the full squad outside on the pitch today. And the first team meeting, talking about our season ambition and who we want to be. It's been a great day, and of course I'm very excited, yeah.
How does it feel? It feels odd coming here. I haven't been shouted at by Katie McCabe or given a big hug by Beth Mead. There is a different feeling here today.
Yeah, you'll get them at some point, just not around Arsenal. Yeah, of course, they are legends of the club on what they've done for Arsenal, and for me it was a pleasure working with them as well. In both of them there's so much football intelligence, and learned from them, and I think Katie with her leadership, her vocality on the pitch, same with Beth, very energetic, vocal on the pitch. Of course we'll miss that, but yeah, it's a new season and we have a lot of great players coming in, and there will be new dynamics, and we have a lot of leadership in the squad as it stands, and then it's always interesting in the group dynamics, how are these different roles going to be filled with the squad that we have right now, but it looks really, really good.
The decision to sort of transform the squad, to move on from certain players to kind of maybe get a bit younger, was taken some months ago. Was there any kind of nerves about sort of the process whilst you were going through it, especially at the end of the season when your team was playing well?
Yeah, nerves, I don't know what word I would use, but you're always, because it's decisions for the player, for the team, for the club, and you want to make sure that for all parties involved the decisions are right. So of course there's been a lot of thinking going into these decisions. If I would say it's made me nervous, I don't think so. But yeah, I'm just really happy with Beth and Katie, the way they've ended their Arsenal time, because I think they've been playing on a really high level and have been really important for us. Likewise for Laia Codina, Vic Belova, Manuela was of course unfortunately out with an injury, but all these players hopefully feel like the end of their Arsenal time has been positive.
But you haven't, lots of clubs, I suppose, when they were sort of going out and starting a new structure, would have gone out and probably signed a load of young players, but you've signed quite a few players at their peak, or certainly sort of hoping to be at their peak. Was that a conscious decision?
Yeah, so of course there's a lot of different factors that we look at when we go and recruit and build a team that we think can be most successful for us. They need to be good fits for us. So how I see the game growing, athleticism I think is really important because the game becomes faster, so explosive actions, you have to be able to deliver them over 90 minutes, so definitely something we've looked at. You have to be able to play the Arsenal way, and that's dominating the balls.
Right, let's take a look at the weather now.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Cooler days are ahead, but meaningful rain is still not expected across England and Wales, including drought-hit areas. Southern Britain, a fine and warm start tomorrow, but elsewhere it's going to be cooler with a risk of showers. Central and southwest England will turn quite cloudy through the morning, but the odd shower, with Wales brightening up. Elsewhere, some sunshine, but northern parts can expect showers, especially around Scotland. Thundery downpours are possible there. Cooler and fresher than today, still very warm for the southeast of England.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.